Part of what makes us Canadian is wanting to know those stories.
At the time you're doing it, you're not thinking about it. You just know that that's the way it's supposed to be.
My dad's story is compelling. It's not the only compelling story of Canadians.
And then you kind of recognize when it's all done, it says, this is pretty big.
We realize that there are neighbors and friends and family members who have these amazing stories that we simply want and should know more about. Growing up, I didn't really think of my dad as a history maker.
They're kind of marveled by the avenue that you could go through university and in high school without losing a football game. I struggled. I mean, as a kid, where I grew up and what I went through was kind of very difficult. And some people think sometimes I'm not very empathetic to them. And probably I'm not as empathetic because I understood what you had to go through to get to where you need to go.
I couldn't understand why he was so quiet and withdrawn. And it was only when I realized what he had been through that I understood that sort of quiet demeanor. There was just so much adversity and so many challenges that in some ways they had to just force it out of their minds so that they could accomplish what they needed to accomplish.
You decide to write that letter and tell the NFL teams that, listen, I only want to be evaluated a quarterback. If that's not your intention, I'll move on. So can you. Why did you decide to write that letter, especially at that time where it could be foreseen that a young black man telling white, powerful men what you envisioned?
Well, you know, and it wasn't like I was trying to tell them something to be bold or bad at them. I went to university to get an education, and I never had the aspirations of playing professional football. So it wasn't really a heavy-duty thing for me to say, this is my position, this is what I want to play. If you want to draft me in that position. So I wasn't sort of being arrogant or nasty. I was just stating a fact because with my degree, I had gotten everything my mother wanted me to get in regards to using football as an opportunity to get that.
I don't think my dad was interested or had in his mind that he was going to protest and have this platform of speaking out against injustice. I think he just wanted to take care of his family.
Nowadays, especially with our economic climate, people are often talking about the systemic issues that many African Americans fall to, about being in poverty, not being able to strive and get out of it. You're an example of someone who was able to. What can people learn from your story?
Well, I think to be focused on something, and I think my mother drove home because she didn't have anything but an 8th grade education, the importance of education. The people you meet in the process of going through that education of 2 + 2 is 4, and what you do in learning the people's lives and different cultures and different backgrounds and all these things that allow you to be a better man, better woman because of these experiences that you get through education, and that I would drive home the importance of education on every level that I possibly could if I could tell everybody.
What should they take from your story and try to apply to their life?
I understood that I couldn't pay to get an education, and I could use a vehicle like sport to get my education. And so it rooted me in a way to allow me to focus that the main thing that I wanted to do with sport was to get my education, not the reverse. I think too much emphasis, our young kids are looking at, I'm going to be the best pro player. And the percentages of that happening are so far off that it kind of scares me. But the percentages of them being able to get their education is really very high for them if they begin to work at it.
This year, 2013, marks 50 years from Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Fair to say that a lot of the embodiment and the passion in that speech was so that your dad would have an opportunity to do what he's done?
Yeah, I think my dad would say absolutely.
I was 13 at that time. I would have never dreamt that 13, dealing with civil rights movements and all the things that were going on, that I would be in Canada and living in Canada and raising my kids in Canada.
I think he felt like that dream and that ability for people to truly feel free and to feel like they had every opportunity was going to come in Canada.
What role, in your estimation, does the CFL have in kind of the story and the curriculum of Black history in this country?
Oh, I think it's huge, and I don't know if it's played out enough. I think maybe my story and Bernie Custis and some of the other players that came before is to open up the door to African-American quarterbacks, and I probably was the backdrop, starting because winning the Grey Cup, boom, the lights went off, and then there was a lot of other black quarterbacks that came in the CFL, and a lot of them had an opportunity to go back to the U.S., like Warren Moon, and get a chance to play, where they never would have gotten that chance to play out the door in the U.S. When I came to Canada, there was no issue about playing quarterback. And when I finished a career, there was no issue about where I could go to work and job as long as I did a good job. And when I began to progress and have my kids and have my family, there was no issue about where they went to school and the diversity within the schools and the ranks going on. And so that in itself began to sort of free me to a lot of things and comfort levels that I probably would not have had the same way growing through those processes in the States. I love the US, now don't misunderstand, that's where I was born and raised. But I'm in love with Canada in regards to what it allowed me to do as a person of color coming to be able to perform in every level that I wanted to.
The people and the men that play in the CFL are part of a unique culture. That idea that you can come from a place that's not great and be given a great opportunity in a great country, and that can reshape everything that your family experiences and does going forward.